Good morning. Today's topic is on orthopedic trauma introduction. So what do you mean by orthopedic trauma? So any injury to the musculoskeletal system can result in damage to the joint, bones, ligaments and the muscles. It can vary from a simple hairline fracture to a life-threatening injury. So what is trauma? Nowadays, trauma is the leading cause of death in age groups from 1 to 45 years. Fatal injuries are fourth leading cause of death in all ages. Road traffic accidents, falls, these form the leading cause of trauma, followed by the intentional violence. So the main cause of death in trauma is either the head injuries, hemorrhagic shock, and multi-organ failure. So coming to the definitions. So fracture, it can be simply defined as a break in the continuity of the bone. But according to definition, fracture is a break in the surface of a bone, either across its cortex or through its articular surface. So in this X-ray, we can see it is across its cortex. And here in the second picture, we can see it is passing through its articular surface. So coming to the next definition, dislocation. Dislocation is a complete and persistent displacement of a joint. Next, subluxation. It is a partial dislocation of the joint. These two will be explained detailed in the coming slides. So classification. So coming to the classification of fractures, why we should classify it? To act as a treatment for the guide and assist with the prognosis. So based on this, it is divided into 4 types. First one is based on relationship with the external environment. It can be either closed fracture or it can be an open fracture. So what do you mean by closed fracture? Closed fracture means the fracture is not communicating with the external environment. That is, the skin and the overlying soft tissue are intact. So it is called as a closed fracture. What do you mean by open fracture? In open fracture, the fracture is communicating with external environment. That is, the skin and the overlying soft tissue are open. They're intact. They're not contact. The open fracture is again classified into 2 types. It can be either internally open or externally open. Internally open means from inside. Externally means from outside. So in this picture, we can see this is the fracture. This is the sharp fracture fragment. This pierces the skin from within inside. So it is called internally open. So this is other one, for example, of externally open. Some object causing the fracture. It lacerates the skin and the soft tissue. So it is called as externally open. This open type of fractures are more prone for infections. Second is based on displacement of the fragments. So you should remember 3 Ds. Displacement is determined by the distal fragment in relation to the proximal fragment. First, suppose this is the proximal fragment and this is the distal fragment. So based on this, it is classified into 2 types, undisplaced and displaced. So this is the displaced fracture. Here the bones are broken and the both ends are no longer straight. They are not in alignment. Here the bone is still straight. So this displacement is due to mechanism of injury, muscle pull and gravity. So first about the mechanism of injury. In this picture we can see this is a Colles fracture. In this Colles fracture, the mechanism of injuries fall on an outstretched hand. So this is the distal fragment and this is the proximal fragment. Here the distal fragment is displaced dorsally and there is a dorsal tilt. Here the proximal fragment is laterally shifted and there will be a lateral tilt. So this is other example. Say this is one of the example for the muscle pull, and this is the proximal femur fracture. Here we take if this is a proximal fragment and this is the distal fragment. Here the proximal fragment is flexed, abducted, and it is externally rotated, and the distal fragment is adducted. The proximal fragment is pulled by the muscles attached to it, such as flexors and short external rotators, and the distal fragment is adducted by the pull of the adductor muscles. So this is another example for the muscle pull. This is the clavicle fracture. This is the medial fragment. This is the lateral fragment, and this is the shaft of the clavicle. So here the medial fragment is pulled by the muscle called the sternocleidomastoid, pull upwards. Here the trapezius, it is pulling the lateral fragment upwards, and this is the gravity, that is nothing but the weight of the arm, and this is the pectoralis major, this is pulling the lateral fragment medially. So coming to the types of, what are the types of displacement? It can be angulation, rotation, and translation. Angulation is nothing but the bend at the fracture determined by its degree and its relation to the apex of the angle. So it can be medially angulation or it can be lateral angulation. Medial angulation is called as varus angulation, and lateral angulation is called as a valgus. So translation is nothing but the sideway motion of the fracture movements or the fracture fragments. Rotation, it can be internally rotated or externally rotated. Here, this is another example for the displacement of the fracture fragments. Here, this is the fracture of the patella. This is the upper pole and this is the lower pole. And the upper pole is pulled away from the lower pole. The muscle attaching here, the upper pole, is the quadriceps muscle. And the fracture fragments are also rotated internally. Coming to the based on fracture pattern, it can be of 5 types. First one is a transverse fracture. Second is oblique. Third is a spiral. Fourth is a comminuted, and the fifth is a segmental fracture. So what do you mean by transverse fracture? Here the fracture line is perpendicular to the long axis of the bone. This is the long axis of the bone and the fracture line is perpendicular to it. Next is the oblique fracture. Next is the spiral fracture. The fracture runs spirally in more than one plane. Comminuted fracture means there will be a multiple fracture fragments. Segmental fractures mean in a single bone there will be 2 fractures at different places. So any direct impact on the bone causes the transverse fracture, and the compression forces on the bone causes the oblique fracture. Any twisting or torsion in force causes the spiral fracture. So this is the picture. This is an unloaded bone and this is the loaded bone. So compression forces across the long axis of the bone, it causes an oblique fracture. Whether a tension causes the transverse fracture or the direct impact of the bone, it causes a transverse fracture. When there is a torsion or twisting injury, it causes a spiral fracture. When there is a bending force, it causes a transverse butterfly fracture or the segmental fracture. So coming to the PG bits, a few points. Direct impact on the bone produces the transverse fracture. Twisting injury or torsion forces produce a spiral fracture. Compressive forces produce a short oblique fracture, and the bending forces produce a segmental fractures, nothing but the triangular butterfly fragment. So based on etiology, it is classified into 3. First one is a traumatic fracture, pathological fracture, and stress fracture. Traumatic fracture is defined as any fracture that it has sustained due to trauma is called traumatic fracture. Pathological fracture means the fracture is abnormal bones, that is some underlying pathology is there. Coming to the stress fracture, it is due to the chronic repetitive stress on the normal bone. So these are the examples of the X-rays of the pathological fractures, and this is a stress fracture and this is a traumatic fracture. So in detail about the pathological fractures. So pathological fracture, it has an inherent pathology in the bone that weakens the bone and making it susceptible to fractures. So how do you diagnose a pathological fracture? The patient gives a history of trivial trauma. Either he gives a previous history of discomfort or pain in the region. So how do you treat the pathological fracture? So first we have to treat the underlying pathology. It can be either some bone cysts or malignant bone tumors or some other conditions like osteomyelitis or Paget's disease. And it is treated by using the help of bone graft or bone cement or by the locking compression plate. So whenever a patient comes with a fracture without any history of sustained trauma, think of pathological fracture. So these are the causes of pathological fracture at a glance. At birth, the causes are mainly osteogenesis imperfecta. From 0 to 5 years, the causes are osteogenesis imperfecta, osteomyelitis. From the age group of 5 to 20 years, the causes are osteomyelitis, simple bone cyst, and primary bone malignancy. For the age group of 20 to 50 years, cystic lesions of the bone, malignancy, osteomalacia, and giant cell tumor. After 50 years, the most common causes for pathological fractures is osteoporosis, multiple myeloma, and secondaries in the bone. So what is a stress fracture? Stress fracture is, it occurs due to chronic repetitive stress on the normal bone. There will be a break in the bony trabeculae. Usually it is difficult to detect on X-rays. Clinically, the pain is elicited. So it can be diagnosed on MRI or bone scan, as it is very difficult to detect on X-rays. The example for stress fracture is March fracture. So coming to the what are the factors suggesting a pathologic fracture? Can be a spontaneous fracture, fracture after the minor trauma, pain at the site before the fracture, multiple recent fractures, unusual fracture pattern, patient older than 45 years, and any history of primary malignancy. These are the factors suggesting a pathological fracture. So unusual fracture pattern is also known as a banana fracture. What is banana fracture? It is a transverse fracture after minimal trauma through an abnormal area of bone. It is a frequent pattern in pathologic situations and the appearance of breaking of a segment of a banana. So there is a criteria for the risk of fractures. It is called as a Merrill's criteria. It has two variants. One is a variables and the other is a number assigned to the patients. So in this criteria, each patient's situation is assessed by assigning a number, that is 1, 2, and 3 to each aspect of his or presentation. The presentations may be site, pain, lesion, and the size, and then adding the numbers to obtain a total number to indicate the patient's risk for fracture. So it is mainly to interrupt to interrupt whether to interfere with the surgical management or not. So for example, if you take the patient is having a site of upper extremity with a moderate pain and the lesion is lytic lesion, and the size of the lesion is 2/3 of the diameter of the bone. So here the score is more than 8. So here should be prophylactic internal fixation should be done. So these are the causes of pathological fractures. It can be either due to the infective disorders, as I told, it can be due to chronic pyogenic osteomyelitis, tubercular or syphilitic osteomyelitis, either due to the neoplasm such as benign or malignant neoplasm, and some other miscellaneous causes. What are the general affections of the bone? Either due to the congenital disorders like osteogenesis imperfecta, fibrous dysplasia, and generalized rarefaction of the bone such as senile osteoporosis, hyperparathyroidism, osteomalacia, scurvy, and nutritional rickets. So what are the anatomical sites for high risk for stress fractures? So the common sites are femoral neck, which is on the tension side, patella on the tension side, anterior tibial cortex, medial malleolus, talar neck, dorsal tarsal navicular cortex, fifth metatarsal, proximal metaphysis, and sesamoids of the great toe. So usually, as I said, plain X-rays are usually negative for the first 2 to 3 weeks. So they are suggestive of stress fracture with appearance of the callus. So MRI is better than the bone scan in diagnosis of stress fractures. So few of the bits for your post-graduation entrance. The most common cause of pathological fracture is osteoporosis. The most common site of pathological fracture is vertebral body. The most common region for pathological fracture in children is simple bone cyst. Pathological fractures. The treatment of choice for pathological fractures is surgical stabilization with internal fixation. The risk of pathological fracture is determined by the Merrill's criteria. The most common site for stress fracture is second metatarsal neck followed by the tibial shaft. Predominant risk factor for stress fractures are increasing in trainee frequency and intensity. Predisposed individuals for stress fractures are athletes and army recruits. Investigation of stress fractures. If it is unilateral, MRI is the investigation of choice, and it is bilateral, bone scan is the MRI. Bone scan is the investigation of choice. So from above these slides, so you have to differentiate between traumatic fracture, pathological fracture, and stress fracture. The main difference between the traumatic fracture and pathological fracture is the traumatic fracture, the patients will give a history of sustained trauma. Whenever you're suspecting a pathological fracture, you have to take a brief history, whether he is having any prior malignancy, any other risk factors. And the main difference is pain followed by the fracture is called as known as a pathological fracture, and fracture followed by the pain is a traumatic fracture. Coming to the next slide, injury to the joints. Any injury to the joints can be dislocation or subluxation. Dislocation means the articular surfaces are so much displaced that there is no contact between them. Subluxation means there is some contact preserved between the articular surfaces. Definitely dislocation is an emergency. It should be reduced. So this is the normal joint and this is the subluxated. So there is some contact between articular surfaces. This is the dislocation, means that there is no contact between the two articular surfaces. So these are the radiographs showing the dislocation and subluxation. This is an X-ray showing the dislocation. This is the normal joint. This is the head of the femur, and this is the acetabulum. So there is a complete contact between the two articular surfaces. Here there is no contact between the articular surfaces. This is another example for this is a fracture dislocation of the proximal humerus, and this is the head of the humerus, and this is the shaft, and this is the glenoid cavity. This is the glenoid cavity. So it is a complete, this is a dislocation. So these are the examples. Coming to the dislocations, what are the types of dislocations? It can be traumatic, infective, paralytic, congenital. The dislocations, they damage the capsule, articular surfaces, surrounding muscles, and may even cause osteochondral fractures. So what are the typical deformities in dislocations? In the upper limb, there is a shoulder dislocation and elbow dislocation. The shoulder dislocation can be anteriorly dislocated or posteriorly dislocated. So the deformity in the shoulder dislocation is abduction deformity. In the elbow also, anterior dislocation, posterior dislocation. The deformity will be flexion deformity. In hip also, there will be anterior dislocation and posterior dislocation. In anterior dislocation, the deformity will be flexion, abduction, and external rotation deformity. And in posterior dislocation, the deformity will be flexion, adduction, and internal rotation deformity. In shoulder dislocation, anterior dislocation is most common, but in hip dislocation, posterior dislocation of is most common. And the deformity in knee is a flexion deformity, and in ankle it is a varus deformity. So definitely, as I told, dislocations are an emergency. It should be reduced immediately and it should be immobilized. So what are the complications? Neurovascular injuries, recurrent dislocations, avascular necrosis of the avascular necrosis if it is not reduced as early as possible, and there will be osteochondral fractures, the post-traumatic arthritis, joint stiffness, and myositis ossificans. So the remembering points and dislocation is, it is an orthopedic emergency. A reduction should be quick and prompt. The reduction should always be done under general anesthesia to relax the muscles. Swelling is less when compared to the fractures. The movements are more restricted than in fractures. Close reduction is sufficient most of the times. If the close reduction fails, then we have to go for open reduction. And the reduction technique should always be very gentle. Pain will not subside by splinting unlike fractures. The myositis ossificans is a problem more commonly associated with dislocation. Coming to the injuries and ligaments. So injury to the ligament is called sprain, and it is not the same. Injury to the ligament is called as a sprain. Any tear or injury in the ligament is called sprain, and it should be differentiated from strain. Strain is nothing but a stretch in the muscle or at its attachment or the tendinous attachment. So the sprain is classified into 3 grades: grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3. Grade 1 and grade 2, they involve only loss of few fibers, but in grade 3, there will be a complete tear of the ligaments, and it could be associated with avulsion of the bony chip. So how do you diagnose a sprain? It is diagnosed clinically by doing stress test. Mostly in the grade 1 and grade 2, they'll have only pain at the injury site. But in grade 3, there will be a opening up of the joint. Even in the stress views on x-rays also, we can see the opening up of the joint. And other investigations for to diagnose the ligament sprain is MRI and the arthroscopy. So how do you treat the ligament sprain? For all 3 grades, whether it is grade 1, grade 2, or grade 3, the basic treatment is RICE. RICE is nothing but a rest to the joint, ice therapy, compressive bandage, and elevation of the limb. Along with this RICE therapy, we have to advise NSAIDs and anti-inflammatory drugs. It is common for all the grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3. But for grade 3, we'll advise a patient for 1 to 2 weeks for the plaster cast. But it should not immobilize for prolonged period, as in fact, early immobilization leads to early healing of the ligaments. So coming to the strain, any injury or tear in the muscle is called strain. It could be traumatic, degenerative. The muscles are often ruptured, then tendons in elderly. It could be due to violent contraction of the muscles or degenerative changes or injury by the sharp objects. So what are the common sites of tendon rupture? The common sites are supraspinatus tendon, Achilles tendon, biceps tendon, long head of biceps tendon, extensor pollicis longus tendon, quadriceps tendon, and patella tendon. These are the common sites of tendon rupture. So what are the approaches to the orthopedic injury? So whenever a patient comes to your OPD, thorough history should be taken from the patient. First is the age of the patient, whether he's younger age or elderly. Some fractures are more common in elder people, such as distal radius fractures, as their bones are very osteoporotic. Coming to the mechanism of injury, whether he had a sustained injury on fall on an outstretched hand or a fall from height. So fall on an outstretched hand, for examples are distal radius fractures or supracondylar fracture of humerus. And the fall from height examples are like calcaneum fractures and vertebral body fractures. And duration since injury, how long the patient is having the injury, and he's having any other comorbidities such as hypertension, diabetes, or some other comorbidities. So what are the symptoms? How the patient presents to us? They come to us with pain, deformity, swelling, and inability to move the limb. So what are our examination findings? The examination findings include tenderness, crepitus, deformity, loss of transmitted movements, shortening, abnormal mobility, and the neurovascular examination is very important in the examination point of view. So the most consistent sign of fresh fracture and the pathognomic sign of fresh fracture are bony tenderness, deformity, abnormal mobility, crepitus, and shortening of the bone. So after you have diagnosed it as a fracture, so what are the investigations you are going to advise? The first is an X-ray. So the X-rays are AP and lateral view. Whenever you're taking a joint, one joint above and one joint below should be included. Special views may be necessary at times, and avoid unnecessary X-rays to protect from radiation. And you should hold the fracture in anatomical position for interpreting. And absence of fracture line on X-ray does not completely rule out the fracture. So these are the X-rays. So by seeing these views, we think there is no fracture. Yes, we can see this is the tibia, this is the fibula, and this is the knee joint, and this is the ankle joint, which is including one joint above and one joint below. By seeing this X-ray, we think there is no fracture. But reality is this. Here we can see the oblique fracture of the distal tibia. So importance of AP and lateral views in X-ray. So by only seeing AP view, we can't say there is no fracture. So both views are very important to diagnose a fracture. So what is the management of the fractures? It is categorized into 3 phases. Phase 1 is emergency care. Phase 2 is definitive care. Phase 3 is rehabilitation. Phase 1 is the emergency care. At the time of accident or at the time of trauma. So first most important thing is we have to resuscitate the patient, and we have to rule out other life-threatening injuries, and we have to do a complete skeletal survey from head to toe. Examination is very important. Next, if you are suspecting any fracture, we have to splint the fracture. So why we have to splint the fracture means it's so that we can prevent the mobility at the fracture site. So mobility, if there is no mobility at the fracture site, the patient somewhat pain will come down, and it prevents further soft tissue damage, and there will be easy transportation. Coming to the phase 2. Phase 2 means definitive care. So what are the principles of fracture management? First, we have to reduce the fracture, then we have to mobilize, and we have to preserve the joint function. So reduction can be done. So first is a reduction, reducing the fracture fragments and achieve the alignment. Either we can be reduce the fracture by the either open reduction or by the closed reduction. So after reducing the fracture fragments, we have to immobilize the fracture either by the external splint or by the internal splints. Next, after the immobilization, we have to preserve the function of the joint, so that maintaining the range of motion of adjacent joints and physiotherapy. So what are the methods of treatment? It mainly depends upon the fracture morphology, like displacement, type of fracture, and anatomical location, etc. So treatment by functional use of limb. It is, for example, rib fractures and scapula. there is no need to immobilize the fractures. So treatment of immobilization. For example, if you take a clavicle fracture, it can be treated conservatively by immobilization. So treatment by close reduction and immobilization. Example, Colles fracture. Treatment by close reduction and percutaneous pinning, distal radius fractures. And treatment by open reduction and internal fixation by nailing or plating. So other one is a minimal invasive surgery. So as I said, clavicle can be immobilized by conservative. This is called as a clavicular brace, which is used for the clavicle fractures. And this is the distal radius fracture, which is immobilized with the help of the Colles cast. So this is the close reduction and internal fixation with the pinning technique, these K-wides. And this is the open reduction and internal fixation with plate for distal radius fractures. Here we can see this is the both bone forearm fracture, which is fixed internally with the nails. So how you are going to reduce the reduction of the fractures? Reduction is nothing but achieving the alignment of the fracture fragments. So what are the order of acceptance of the imperfect reduction? First is the translation, next followed by angulation, next is the rotational. This is the imperfect reduction order. So what are the methods of reduction? Can be the close reduction, continuous traction, open reduction. So when we'll go for an open reduction? Whenever there is a failure for close reduction, we have to go for an open reduction. There are indications for open reduction. One is absolute indication, other one is a relative indication. Absolute indication is there is a failure of close reduction, displacement of intra-articular fracture fragments, some displaced epiphyseal injuries, that is type 3 and type 4, major avulsion fractures, example fracture patella, and a non-union. These are the absolute indications for open reduction. Relative indications: delayed union and malunion, multiple fractures, pathological fractures, where closed reduction is known to be ineffective. Example, fracture of the neck of the femur and fractures with vascular or mural injuries. So how we are going to, after reducing, we have to immobilize the fracture. So, immobilization of the fracture. So to prevent the displacement of the fracture, to prevent delayed or non-union, and to relieve the pain. The methods of immobilization can be either non-operative or operative. So this is the non-operative method and this is the operative method. The non-operative methods are strapping, slings, cast immobilization, braces, or splint. The operative methods are by external fixation by the pin or ring fixators, K-wides, intramedullary nails, screws, and plates. So after the fractures get united, it is also very important, which is called as rehabilitation. It is the mobilization of the adjacent joints, re-education of the muscles, such by the static and dynamic exercises, and gradual introduction of the weight bearing, followed by the partial weight bearing and complete weight bearing. So fracture healing, coming to the fracture healing. The fracture healing is similar to that of the soft tissue healing, as it heals by the soft tissue healing heals by the fibrous tissue, but here it heals by the mineralized mesenchymal tissue, that is called as the callus. It is divided into two types, primary healing and secondary healing. So primary healing means there is no formation of callus. The fracture heals by direct osteonal hookup. The osteoclast engulfs the dead bone, followed by the osteoblast, forming the new bone. This gets mineralized slowly. This type of fractures are seen in fractures treated by rigid fixation. Coming to the fracture healing. Whenever there is a fracture, the following stages occur. The first stage is the stage of hematoma formation. This lasts for up to 7 days. Whenever there is a fracture, there will be a torn of the blood vessels leading to the formation of hematoma in and around the fracture site. So there will be a stripping of the periosteum and soft tissue leading to the ischemic necrosis of this fracture ends. So there will be sensitization of the precursor cells which help in healing. So this is the stage of hematoma. Coming to the stage of granulation tissue, it lasts for up to 2 to 3 weeks. The differentiation of the precursor cells into fibroblast, osteoblast, and vascular growth. All these form a soft tissue bridge across the fracture with no structural rigidity. Here the fracture is still mobile. The blood clot, it forms as a fibrous mesh for ingrowth of the fibroblast and capillaries, and later the clot is engulfed by the macrophages. Coming to the stage of soft callus, it lasts up to 4 to 12 weeks. Here the granulation tissue with osteoblasts which lay the intercellular matrix that gets impregnated with the calcium salts to form the oven bone. So here the first radiological evidence of fracture union is callus, which is seen on X-rays after 3 weeks. Coming to the stage of remodeling or consolidation, it lasts for up 1 to 4 years. Here the oven bone is replaced by the lamellar bone. Coming to the last stage, it is a stage of modeling. It takes many years. The bone is gradually strengthened. Shaping of the endosteal surface takes place. The muscle pull and stress across the bone act as a stimulus for modeling of the bone. So, summary of this fracture healing is no fracture unites in less than 3 weeks. The time of union is in order: first the transverse fracture, followed by the oblique, followed by the spiral fractures. Tenderness is the only clinical sign in stress, pathological and torus fractures. Most common cause of failure of close reduction is soft tissue interposition. So what are the factors affecting the fracture healing? Age of the patient. So in children, the fracture unites so early, and we can even see the callus within the 2 weeks of the fracture on X-rays. So type of the bone. Cancellous bone and the flat bones heal very fast when compared to the tubular or the cortical bone. And if there is any disturbed pathoanatomy, soft tissue interposition or loss of blood supply. Type of reduction. Good apposition leads to a good union of the bone. Immobilization. All the fractures need not to be immobilized, such as the scapula and rib fractures, but specific fractures to be immobilized. Type of the fracture. It mainly depends upon the fracture pattern. Spiral fractures unite first, followed by the transverse fractures, followed by the oblique fractures. Next, coming to the compression at the fracture site. So coming to the classification of open fractures, the classification is named as a Gustello-Anderson classification. So it has 3 grades. Grade 1 is the wound is less than 1 centimeter due to the bone protrusion or the low velocity penetrating injury. Grade 2 is more than 1 centimeter wound with soft tissue avulsion or flap and minimal devitalized tissue and minimal contamination. Grade 3 is more than 10 centimeters. Wound with extensive soft tissue injury. So it is subclassified into 3A, 3B and 3C. 3A is adequate soft tissue coverage will be there. 3B means significant soft tissue loss with exposed bone that requires soft tissue transfer to achieve coverage. 3C means associated with vascular injury that requires repair for the limb preservation. So this is grade 1 injury. Here the wound size is less than 1 centimeter. Is called as a puncture wound, and this is the grade 2, which is the the diameter of the wound is more than 1 centimeter, and this is a grade 3, and 3A, 3B and 3C. So how do you manage these open fractures? So challenges in open fractures are there. As I told, open fractures are more prone for infections. Why they are more prone to infections means they are contaminated with the surrounding environment, and it also leads to the delayed fracture healing. Why there will be delayed fracture healing means there will be a loose avascular bony fragments leading to non-union. There will be loss of bone pieces which are detached from the normal bone. There is a loss of hematoma. All these the reasons for fracture non-healing. So how do you manage? So wound care is the utmost important for the open fractures. If the wound care is not done thoroughly, we have to face so much problems. So first one is the thorough wound lavage and debridement. We have to thoroughly wash the wound with normal saline. We have to remove all the dead tissue. We have to remove the dead muscles, any skin tags, everything should be removed which is devitalized. Following the thorough wound wash, along with that, we have to give the intravenous antibiotics, tetanus prophylaxis. After the wound care is done, we have to splintage followed by the fracture stabilization. So what are the learning objectives from this class is, first we have to know what is fracture, and we have to differentiate it from a traumatic fracture, pathological fracture and stress fracture. Pathological fracture means Pain followed by the fracture is a pathological fracture. Fracture followed by the pain is a traumatic fracture. And the treatment of the fracture also depends upon the fracture pattern, whether it is stable or unstable fractures. Stable fractures so that we can treat conservatively, and unstable fractures we can treat surgically. And from the fracture healing slide, no fracture heals less than 3 weeks, and the callus so no fracture unites in less than 3 weeks, and the callus is the first radiological sign which is seen on the X-rays. So management of the open fractures. So open fracture should be treated very thoroughly as risk of infection is more. Thank you.